There we go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, officers. Welcome to the special sub on Tuesday, the 5th of July 2022 at 6:30 p.m. Evacuation procedure. We've got no members of the public, and I'm sure everybody sitting here knows which way that we go out. Apologies for absence, members away on official council business. I've got two apologies, Councillor Colin Ayfield and Councillor Peter Mawson. Disposal of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interest? None. Public participation? None. And I have 5, update report on human resources issues, report of the Corporate Director, Resources. Kerry?
Thank you, Chair. The recommendation to the board is that the report is noted. The report is an update report on human resources issues and summarises the work that the HR team have completed in 21-22. If anyone's got any specific questions, happy to answer any specific questions. You'll have seen from the report there was an awful lot of work that the HR team continued in response to the COVID-19 pandemic in terms of any employee issues, and that work is detailed in the report. And on top of that, obviously the general day-to-day activities of the HR team in terms of supporting divisions with sickness absence management, recruitment and employee relation issues. And during 21-22, there were some substantial restructures that took place during that year as well. So again, assisting in all the support that's required for those employee relations issues. If there are any, just to cover in terms of areas to be taken forward then in 22-23, the report also covers that area. So it acknowledges what work has been undertaken in 21-22, but then identifies what work is in the HR work plan for 22-23. Some of the work plan for 21-22 was delayed due to work associated due to COVID-19 pandemic and some staff vacancies within the team. So therefore, some of the work that was identified in 21-22 is then moving forward into 22-23 again. And what had previously been submitted to the group back in August 21, and that includes work to take forward in terms of reviewing the council's occupational health provider, working towards the foundation level on Thrive at Work initiative, and then an updated timetable on policy review for all the various HR policies across the council in terms of getting into a programme of reviewing those policies to make sure they're up to date with any changes that may be required. So a summary, but happy if there's any particular questions.
I've just got one on 7.2 to start off with the pay awards. So we've got no further with this yet. There's been no meeting.
So the pay award is negotiated nationally between the national employers and the unions during the year. The pay award for 21-22 was only agreed at the end of February. 28th of February, I think, 2022, and obviously then that was paid and backdated for that financial year. Normally it does take a while for national employers and unions to negotiate. Hopefully this year they will try and hurry things along as much as possible. So obviously any pay award that gets agreed, if they come to an agreement, will get paid to employees sooner rather.
So it says officers from the council will attend. So will that be you?
So myself and Sue Garner as Corporate Director Resources. There was the West Midlands employers as the regional employers hold a pay briefing session where the national employers come to meet the councils within each region, within the 6 or 7 regions across the country, to get a bit of a feel for the views of the councils in each region to help input their discussion, their discussions in terms of the national negotiations. So there was a meeting a couple of weeks ago that Sue and I both attended to attend that regional briefing and get a bit of a steer from national employers on their views and get input from us.
Councillor Jordan?
I was just going to say, it's quite bad that they took so long to sort it out, but obviously that's out of our hands. I've got a point on 5.1, recruitment, retention and selection. There was a number of starters from April to March, 58, but there was more leavers. What's happening? What's going on, please?
Yeah.
Is it part of the restructuring, or is people moving other councils?
Yeah, I mean, the 91 leavers, as you can see there, there's a substantial number of redundancies there, 28 redundancies. So during the year, you know, the Borough Care Service, for example, ended. So that was reasonable number. Yeah, it's quite, yeah, that was, when was it? July 21 was the Borough Care Service. Then there was some central service, central admin team restructuring, and some at Polesworth Sports Centre. So 28 redundancies throughout the year. In terms of resignations and retirements, again, some people, I think it was probably noted nationally as well, that actually during the COVID pandemic, a lot of people reevaluated, I suppose, some of their career choices, and actually if they were close to retirement, decided to retire.
Take that step.
Yeah, reevaluated their career choices. Some people moved into self-employment, or got out of whatever employment they were currently working into.
So can I ask? So can I ask? Are the holes plugged, or do we? I mean, do we have a lot of vacancies still out there for positions?
We do have some vacancies still across the council. A fair amount of vacancies spread across the council, but that's primarily in terms of the issues with the recruitment to that is the skills shortage of the labour market. So we do have some vacancies. I've got, for example, a vacancy within the HR team for HR that I'm going to recruit to on 2 occasions, but unfortunately haven't been successful. Yes, there's other vacancies in finance, for example, planning, I think, but there are vacancies in different service areas across the council.
Excuse me, through you, Chair. Can I just pick up on that then? You've had a couple of vacancies for HR. Sorry, a couple of people coming for a job for HR. Why didn't take the post up, or there wasn't good enough?
Sorry, I've had 2 attempted recruitment attempts, so I went out to advert.
Sorry.
But unfortunately, for example, on the second occasion, I didn't receive any applications at all for the vacancy. The recruitment market at the moment is exceptionally tough after the pandemic. We're in a competitive marketplace, and it's trying to promote and I think I have noted that at 5.3 in the report, a lot of councils in the region and nationally are experiencing recruitment and retention issues, because it's certain areas where there's specialist skills and talent required: finance, environmental planning, human resources. It's a competitive marketplace that local government we're competing with private sector companies.
Okay, and private sector companies are sort of up there, and we're not quite up there with them.
It's trying to promote. Obviously, there's numerous factors to look at. I mean, private sectors may well pay a higher salary. Obviously, it's making sure that our salaries are competitive where possible. And again, that's where the National Pay Award and everything comes into play. But it's also looking at the different roles. What local government can offer that the private sector can't, for example, in terms of career posts, job enrichment, flexible working, more so flexible working, government pension. So one thing in terms of that, as mentioned in the report, West Midlands employers again looking at regionally, and again it's a national issue. It's looking at how to promote local government as career of choice, because probably 20 years or so ago, local government was considered a much more career of choice, and actually it's attracting new talent on the labour market to work in local government and promoting the rewarding benefits of working in local government. Fantastic services to residents and
and we have had a shuffle round within the borough, haven't we? Because we one of our HR team moved to somewhere else in the building within the team.
we've moved both
Yeah.
from HRT, we've moved over from
Yeah.
our bank house to
That's
a
it,
council
yes.
house
So
as well.
we have
Yeah.
kind of had a bit of a shuffle round. Councillor Parsons?
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
Yes, I mean, obviously these are challenging times, particularly in terms of recruitment, because the private sector can respond really quickly because they're not tied to salary bands, and so it is difficult. I was wondering I know we have discussed before the sort of the home work balance in terms of working from home. Are you finding that has an impact on the resignations, as it were? Are we being flexible about home working, or are we being less than that? Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously certain roles, home working would be feasible within certain roles. Obviously certain roles not, for example, lifeguard, refuse loaders, etc. But roles where home working is possible, as you may recall, thinking it was May time when we brought the revised flexible working policy with the hybrid working, and that there was an all employees meetings held on team where all employees could join to discuss following on from the board's agreement to adopt that revised policy, where we announced it to all employees in terms of the expectations within that policy for home working, and I would say it's gone down very well. We've not had many issues at all, probably one or two sort of in terms of issues or discussions to have with employees or managers in terms of the hybrid working. I think everybody's really embraced that. It doesn't appear to be any factor in terms of any of the previous resignations. I mean, that was one of the key things for us to adopt that hybrid working approach, in the sense of to ensure we can keep competitive in the recruitment marketplace, as a lot of other employers are doing that. If we weren't offering that, then I think that would be a serious issue in terms of recruiting.
Yes. I mean, I don't want to get the impression that I think home working is the the panacea, the cure. I know a number of people just don't want to work at home.
No.
To be honest, and they want the social aspects of it and the like. It's just. I mean, obviously, what you want to do is try and retain key staff, don't you? And that the level of resignations can be a bit like fear in a battle, if you know what I mean. My daughter's experience, she was a nurse at Trent, and there was almost a mass exodus, because they all just got fed up at the same time. They've now actually gone through a real sort of reorganisation, looked at their facilities and produced a much happier working environment. And sometimes these things are there. I suppose one sense, providing it's not damaging the service, it's and cope with it. That's where we're at, isn't it? Yeah, there is going to be a high turnover of staff at the moment because there are so many employment opportunities. Yeah.
Councillor Gent?
I think Councillor Jordan's covered a lot of what I was going to ask, but just going back to another point, you were talking about competing with the private sector. Is there a lot of competition within the public sector, like the health service? They tend to get paid more, don't they, in the health service?
I mean, obviously when we have resignation. So just thinking about the resignation from the council, we do obviously do exit interviews, exit questionnaires, exit interviews, ask for data, where people are moving to. I don't think we've had any that I can think of that have moved into that sector, but of course it will still be, obviously in terms of the overall recruitment competition, still part of those factors, whether it's other public sector organisations, whether it's private sector. We're all competing, and for specialist skills where, again, like I said, if it's finance, HR, environmental planning, caring roles, not that we have social care, but all these employers, you know, to a certain extent, we're all fishing in the same pool in that sense. So it's instead a very competitive labour market at the moment.
Yeah. So,
Cats.
I'm
Sorry, Ted.
Sorry, I'll go back to what my question actually was. What the Councillor Jordan didn't ask. 5.2, where you talk about reviewing posts when they become vacant. How's that undertaken, and what's how do you decide whether the post should be filled, and what happens to those that aren't filled? Do they get sort of taken off the staffing level, or are they sort of left vacant for recruitment?
I mean, it'd be for the director of the service, the head of service, to when a vacancy comes up to review, obviously, in terms of how essential that vacancy is for the service. As part of the recruitment policy and procedure, there's a process that all vacancies have to go through, which then goes to management team for authorisation to fill that post. If a director feels that a position requires to be out to be filled, to be advertised, go to management team for discussion at management team for authorisation to fill that vacancy. If it wouldn't actually really come to management team if the director decided that they didn't need to fill that role, that, for example, if they had sufficient capacity within the service or they wanted to offer that role up as a saving, then that role would not go into management team. But
so if the
consideration.
post, sorry, not to fill it, would it then remain as a vacancy, or would it be taken off the structure altogether?
It depends on what the director wanted to do within their division. Sometimes they might just put a temporary hold on the vacancy and leave it still within the staffing permanent establishment, or it may be that they wanted to offer that vacancy or take it off the permanent establishment.
Well, I think Councillor Jordan asked the next question about how many vacancies are there. Just anything
I don't have the number off the top of my head, I'm afraid. I mean, as I said, there are a number of vacancies currently across the council in a few different service areas. As I said, HR, finance and planning. Of course, as you would probably expect, some vacancies potentially in all the different service areas. There's currently a revenues and benefits vacancy, benefits officer. There's common vacancies in leisure because that's a high turnover industry. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Parsons, did you want?
Yeah, I did. I was going to say, so have you done?
Yeah, it was a different question.
Oh, right, yeah. I didn't mean to say that this is a very detailed, open and constructive report, so thank you for the report. So, I don't think it leaves us in any sort of in any fog or whatever. It's very clear. Thank you. It's important. Thank you. Yes.
I was just going to ask what you talked about this by the HR team. What's the size of the HR team and the other?
So there's myself as HR officer, manager. I'm demoting myself. Myself as a HR manager full time. On the staffing establishment, I've got 2 full-time HR officers. One of those positions is vacant at present. Within the HR team, we also have a health and safety officer. That's a full-time position. And we've got 2 HR assistants and 2 part-time roles, which total 2 individual part-time roles. Those hours total 40 hours in total.
Councillor Jordan?
Right, off that subject now. I think we've flogged it to there. Sicknesses. I noticed that we seem to have quite a high, I'm talking all sicknesses now, quite a high amount of days lost FTE. Streetscape. Can you explain what's happening there, please?
Okay. Yeah. So obviously, what you've got Appendix A and Appendix B. So to specifically answer your question, you've got on Appendix A the breakdown of days lost by FTE across each division, and then that's further broken down by short-term absence and then long-term absence. Now, as you've obviously already seen, you'll notice there that there's a lot of days lost for Streetscape, and if you look across the breakdown for short-term and long term. One thing I would always say is that if you look at the three, what I would call more so divisions with manual workforce, so refuse and recycling, grounds maintenance and streetscape, leisure, to more of the manual, we're not talking about office based roles, leisure and housing. You'll see that those three divisions do have higher levels of sickness overall than some of the other divisions which are predominantly office based. But specifically streetscape, one thing I would say in terms of streetscape and the breakdown is that they are heavy manual roles. So for example, we have a large number of staff within refuse and grounds maintenance that depending on what the sickness issue is, it depends on when that individual would be able to return to work as to whether we could facilitate an early return to work with adjustments. So, for example, if somebody had a musculoskeletal issue, shoulder operation, shoulder injury, etc., in an office-based role, it might be that we'd be able to put some sort of adjustments in place that would facilitate a return to work. But, for example, if it was a refuse loader, that absence may take longer. One thing I would say with streetscape is over the course of 21-22, there was a large proportion of the sickness absence that was in the top two actually of the categories for sickness absence: mental ill health, stress, anxiety, depression, or musculoskeletal issues. So we did have numerous employees within Streetscape that had sickness absence for those reasons, and then they tend to be longer term absences, which then obviously adds up the figures.
Okay, and through you, Chair, do we have cover if someone's off? It's all right, I know of a case, and I'm trying to do it without mentioning names, but I know of a case where one of our litter pickers was expected to do the round on their own because the other litter picker wasn't with them, which I thought was pretty unfair, but I do realise they have certain areas to work in. That's just taking one example. Another one is, do we have the equipment to stop people from hurting their shoulders and what have you? Is it all maintained well? Is it up to date?
Okay, first of all, in terms of the equipment or the work that the individuals would require, obviously in terms of the risk assessments and health and safety required for the different activities that they would be doing, that should all be covered and assessed in terms of risk assessments and health and safety. And I would say it's not that these injuries have come as a result of an accident at work, where there's the specific, you could correlate it to specifically work related. But in terms of the cover element, depending on obviously the role, some roles and the sickness absence and the length of sickness absence, some managers will organise cover for the role, whether that's every time with the existing staff members, whether that's agency staff cover, if it was, for example, long-term sickness. But then sometimes it will be a case of trying to pick up the work within the team, within what I would say a reasonable expectation that, an individual, if you've got, for example, a pair of, there's a certain amount of work that a pair of people do, 2 full-time officers, it's not reasonable to expect one officer necessarily to do that full exactly the same amount of work.
That's why I was asking whether if these people have got covered. Sorry, through you, Chair. These people have got covered, which didn't seem to happen. That's quite easy.
But yeah, sometimes cover will be arranged for sickness absence. So some of that is depending on the nature of the illness, the expected duration, what you can plan and manage for to know potentially what you might need to cover in the duration.
I've got 2 questions, Kerry, 11.1 and 11.2. One is reviewing the council occupation health provider, which they're looking at. It's August 2021. Have we had an update back on that at all? I can't remember seeing that. And the other one was the recently appointed health and safety officer will work with managers and directors in all the service areas of council to provide health and safety advice and support. Will this be passed down from managers and directors to the staff? You know, being as we've got, seems to have this bit of problem with streetscape, and I noticed the other one is the community team, which I suppose the ones that's out there again, gyms, swimming pools, sports areas.
So in terms of the occupational health provider, that reviewing the council's occupational health provider, that was on the HR work plan to complete during 21-22, but unfortunately that wasn't possible to progress that during 21-22, so it's moved into 22-23's work plan, so by March next year to have done that action to review, and I've recently just started work on that.
I think I asked the same question when we looked at sickness last time, that we have got backup for these people. You know, we're not just, oh, well, they're off with a bad back, or they're not with this, or they're not with that, and we're just leaving them at home. That we have got a system where we offer them advice and we offer them this different kind of training. And another one of my concerns is what Councillor Jordan said, that if we are short in areas, we're not putting too much on the person that's got to cover. Because I know what, I'm exactly the same. If I hadn't got somebody beside on me, I'd do it, and you wouldn't complain. You know, you might think, oh well, but you'd be too worried. And I'm hoping that's not, you know, acting, because I'd hate to think that because we've not got somebody, we're putting pressure on that person to cover all those other jobs, because we could lose that person as well. And I know, you know, I'm seeing the jobs pop up on Facebook that we're short of. So I'd like to think that there's something out there protecting the staff that we've got, so we don't lose any more. Councillor Parsons.
Good. Just very quickly. I mean, spent most of my working life in teaching, but spent 5 years working on the canals, doing a manager job at the end of it. And one of the things that we found really useful, we probably have it, we did have a sort of health and safety forum, which embraced all the areas, you know, from the office to the sort of people out on the bank, as I was and many were, and that proved to be really quite a useful outlet. I don't know, do you have any you think of that nature?
Yeah. So just to pick up on obviously points that Chair made and yourself. So in terms of the council's procedures for dealing with sickness absence management. So yeah, we've obviously got an attendance management policy and procedure, which is in terms of how the council manages the sickness absence and what support we can put in place to manage sickness absence, what support we can put in place for individuals, as I mentioned, if it might be adjustments to role, etc. But yeah, very valid point to note in the sense of it's very important to consider the welfare and the well-being of other team members when within teams, as to whether there's vacancy within the team, whether there's sickness absence in the team, in terms of that manager looking at the team in terms of the level of resilience and capacity within the team to make sure that we're not overburdening employees within that team. That's just a point back on sickness absence. In terms of health and safety, a newly appointed health and safety officer, full-time, as I mentioned, joined the team in March this year. He's doing a fabulous job getting out there across all the different divisions, meeting with all the managers, finding out of the service areas to provide that health and safety advice and support, because fundamentally health and safety is still the responsibility of the managers and the service areas, but the role of the health and safety officers is to provide the support and advice to them. We do have a health safety working party, which this new health safety officer has just recently sent out meeting invites for, I think it's to meet quarterly throughout the year for the remainder of this year. And again, that has always been involving all the different elements of the workforce, so office staff, leisure, representatives from all division, leisure, streetscape, housing.
Please hear that, because I mean a lot of good stuff did come back from the people who are doing the job, as it will. Sometimes, there are obviously times when you can't always say yes, but some good ideas did come out and some good cooperation resulted in. it made people feel a bit valued and listened to as well. So, yeah, I'd recommend it.
Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, I just kind of like it noted. I think I have said this before, how well we've got through the last 2 years. It's been hard 2 years for all of the staff, all the officers, and even councillors. I mean, doing Zoom meetings from home was bad enough for us. I don't know how the officers felt, and working from home if you got a yappy dog or a cat that keeps walking in front of the screen like mine does, and you know, it isn't been easy. And I'd just like to say thank you, especially from this group, to all our staff that kind of got us through it. Because there was I know I'm not very good with IT, but there was even some bigger problems, I think. And just 12.4.1, effective recruitment and management of the workforce contributes to the council's priority for making the best use of our resources. I quite like that statement. I know we got quite a lot of vacancies, and I know it's your kind of but it is going to be hard, I think, because as I've been out in my other capacity through my husband's a little bit, I've been talking to other councillors, other mayors, and we're not the only one. We are not the only authority that's struggling to get an office. And they said it's the higher end ones, because a lot of theirs, again, was at 2 years, working from home, and thought, do I really want to go back? I'm at that where I probably can retire. So I know we're not the only authority that's struggling with some of these. But again, it's just that kickback on the other officers if we've not got a full spec. But no, thank you. It's a very good report.
So at the end of the day, there's a lot to be said for retirement, isn't there?
Yes. Unless you cover councillor. Any more questions? Thank you very much then, Kerry. Thank you, ladies. I'll move it from the chair that
I'll second it.
thank you very much. Everybody in favour? There we go. Thank you very much. Good night. Take care.